that was really great to see this because you hit the science, you go through the biochemistry and everything you've learned through the functional application of health and all these things, which was great. But then it still came back to you still need the foundations there, right?
You do, and I think you just nailed it. And I think, when I think about, my purpose on this planet and the reason for this book, it comes down to exactly what you just said, which is it's about connection. It's about
Yes.
connection. And I think there's four main pieces of connection that we must internalize individually and collectively if we are going to have the future for humanity that we want. And the first is understanding the connection between really all the symptoms and diseases that we're suffering from in the Western world today, the metabolic connected underpinning between nearly every symptom and disease that is torturing the lives of ourselves, our children, and our parents. The second thing is we need to understand our connection between the body and everything else literally in the universe. We, like you just said, we are fully connected. We are nature. We are there's a Taoist saying that I love that I think we really need to internalize, which is that the human body is a process, not an entity. So we are constantly exchanging matter with the environment, soil, water, air, food, and really internalize the fact that there's no separation between us and everything else and have that deep reverence and respect for that incredible miracle of connection. The third piece is really, really internalizing the connection between humans in loving, trusting, in-person relationships to be such a core part of our biology. So if we are social beings who are, and even that feels like a biohackery phrase, like fundamentally, even I think as spiritual beings, connecting with other spirits, and that interaction in person is absolutely dictates our biology. When we're in proximity to other people, it changes our biochemistry. And the interactions between people actually is what can help our own bodies generate chemicals that are basically like medicine. When we hug people we love, we become a pharmacy that generates oxytocin, which is a healing chemical. And so realizing that the connection between humans in person is critical, and to never again accept this idea that we should be that we're somehow helping humanity by separating from each other for long periods of time, like what we saw during the pandemic. And the fourth piece of connection that I think is critical is really meditating on that connection between life and death and life and death, death and birth, and in a endless cycle, an eternal cycle that we are a part of and that is nothing to be afraid of. And, we just have to meditate on the seasons. Like, we cannot have summer and spring without winter. And there's actually a beauty to it. Do we fear winter? No. We know that it's part of a cycle and we're just a part of that as well. And so I think, connection between the symptoms of diseases, connection between us and the rest of the natural energetic world, the connection between humans and the connection between life and death. Those to me are the four pieces of connection that we have to deeply, deeply think about and internalize collectively and as individuals to create a foundation for the healthcare conversation that actually makes sense. Because if it's not rooted on that, we cannot spend our way to an answer if it's built on the wrong foundation. So that connection piece that you brought up, I think is really, it's so, so, so critical. We've got to stop seeking false gods in, these quick fixes and build the city, the empire on like a really strong foundation that's based in reality and truth, and not false premises like, the body being an entity, not a process. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, and isn't it wild? Over the past few years, we've done the exact opposite of everything you said. We literally pushed ourselves into lockdowns, not seeing other people, doing everything digital like this, not going outside, no connection with nature, lower vitamin D levels, closing down gyms, no movement. I mean, all of these are like statistically shown now, like, oh, that was bad for it. Yeah, that was terrible for it. It was just a line of things that we were just creating this perfect storm, but we were following the science and experts. I think that's where people are also getting a little bit fed up. They are like, hey, enough. Our trust in politicians is one thing, but we can't even trust the doctors either.
Yeah.
And that's where people are starting to step up, and people like your brother are, kind of pioneers in saying something is very wrong with this system. And you're right not to trust that. You should be looking, but there's another way.
Yeah.
And this book kind of pivots that